Teachers and doctors protest in Caracas, Venezuela, demanding higher wages.
They say their salaries are not keeping up with the rising cost of living. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Yalago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s investment pitch gets positive response in World Economic Forum. Marcos administration asserts the Philippines does not engage in geopolitical tensions. Gun violence in California claims 6 lives. Opposition leader claims President Volodymyr Zelensky is destroying Ukraine. And Democratic official insists Biden documents may have jeopardized U.S. national security.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s investment pitch for the Philippines has received a very positive response at the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. Randy Bernardino has the details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has discussed his investment pitch for the Philippines during the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The Office of the Press Secretary says Marcos's business pitch has received a very positive response from some of the world's top CEOs and investment experts. Speaker Martin Romualdez also said everyone was excited about the Philippine recovery story and agreed that Philippines is the future investor haven for Western capital. During his departure speech, Marcos emphasized the importance of pull-away meetings. He said the best deals are done outside of the forum. He also vowed to promote the Philippines as a leader and driver of growth and a gateway to the Asia-Pacific region. Sources say the president will also have a bilateral meeting with International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. He will attend a panel on nutrition security, a dialogue on investing in infrastructure, and one-on-one talks with WEF President Jorge Brende. Sources say Marcos is also expected to meet with the Filipino community in Zurich. Marcos's powerhouse delegation includes First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, Finance Secretary Benjamin Diokno, House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez, Senior Deputy Speaker and former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Senior Deputy Majority Leader and the President's son, Sandro Marcos. Randy Bernardino from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. tells world leaders that the Philippines does not engage in geopolitical tensions. The president made the statement at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Nadine Aguilar has the report.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. strongly asserts that members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, remain neutral despite the growing geopolitical tensions in the region. The president stated it during the luncheon held for a delegation of Philippines in Davos, Switzerland. The president said there is pressure on countries in the Asia-Pacific region to side with one side that is causing tensions in the region, especially since the Philippines is on the front line on the issue. However, the president is determined that none of the countries in the region want the developing conflict to end in a Cold War. As he said, countries will grow without having to embrace the mentality of violence.
I think we are determined as a group in ASEAN and in the Indo-Pacific, those around the Indo-Pacific, despite all of this conflict, we are determined to stay away from that. And simply because we are anchored in the idea that the future of the Indo-Pacific, the future of Asia-Pacific, for example, cannot be determined by anyone but the countries of the Asia-Pacific. And that removes us immediately from that idea that you must choose. We choose our friends. We choose our neighbors. That's the choice that we have made.
The president also cited the Philippines as an example of the need to strengthen the local economy to face tough challenges such as the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact of war between Ukraine and Russia.
That we have to strengthen our own local economy to be able to withstand shocks such as the pandemic, such as Ukraine, in the future. And there is an element, there is a tendency of protectionism in that, because we take care first of our own businesses. We take care first of our own industries. We take care first of our own economy.
The president added that the country does not need to rely on imports anymore after overcoming the major challenges to the local economy. The president also believes that even though the world is challenged by various problems, it can still be pushed towards growth and globalization.
I think the tendency after a while, after things have settled, after countries such as the Philippines have put in place the elements of policy, the elements of legislation that are necessary to be able to adjust to what is the new coming economy. Once that is in place, I think that the globalization will start. We will start to return to that tendency of globalization.
The Philippine economy is expected to grow by 6.5% this year, despite the potential for a global economic slowdown. Nadine Aguilar, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has made 3 new appointments for government positions. Romulo Arugay was chosen as the chairman of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. Mario Imperial Molina was appointed as an acting member of the Board of Trustees at the Government Service Insurance System, or GSIS. Joan Masilang Padilla will be the administrator of the Intramuros administration. Last week, former Interior Secretary Eduardo Año was appointed as the new National Security Advisor. Former Commission on Audit Chairperson Michael Aguinaldo was also appointed as the new head of the Philippine Competition Commission.
Lawmakers grilled the Department of Foreign Affairs over the lack of acquittals of Filipinos convicted in criminal cases abroad. Man Corvera with a story.
A Senate hearing has revealed a weak defense of the Department of Foreign Affairs on the issue of convicted Filipinos living abroad. Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva released a DFA report during the Senate hearing of the proposed Filipino migrant workers and free legal assistance of OFWs. The report says 1,278 people were convicted in the first half of 2022 while there were no acquittals. The senators expressed disappointment, saying this means the government is incompetent to defend Filipinos who are accused in foreign countries.
These are figures that we have in our hand. We wanted to find out, tama si Mr. Chairman, ilan yung na-acquit? Kung walang na-acquit, what the hell are we doing here?
The lawmakers also asked the government what the actions are to save convicted Filipinos living abroad. They asserted a budget is allotted for legal assistance to OFWs who are facing cases.
Baka yung mga tatakbuhin, pipitsugin mga abogadong nakukuha doon. Hindi yung mga di kampanilya. Kaya parang zero acquittal, lumilitaw. Over a period of so many years, for me and for all the other senators na listening right now, it's not acceptable. Dapat yung abogado na magaling, abogadong di kalibre, na alam yung kaso, na kaya ipanalo yung kaso.
Yung ginagawa po ninyong review post-service, kasi masyadong concerning ito. Wala pa tayong kababayan na na-acquit. Kinunvict na lang lahat. Ganun na lang.
In response, the DFA explained zero acquittal does not necessarily mean that a Filipino is guilty. It is possible that their cases are pending or on appeal. The DFA added their priority is to give legal assistance to convicted Filipinos.
Kung hindi man na-acquit, hindi nabigyan ng maximum penalty, no? At saka, ibig sabihin din, siguro, zero acquittal does not mean na, baka mali lang yung pagkasulat, no? Lahat yun na hatulan na guilty, baka pending pa yung mga cases, no? Usually, maximum, maybe less than a dozen a year, maybe. Kasi nangyayari dyan, most of the time, na nasisettle, hindi na dumidiretso.
The DFA also admitted that there are currently 60 Filipino workers abroad facing the death penalty. But some of the countries that have imposed penalties also issued moratoriums. This includes the case of Mary Jane Veloso, who was sentenced to death in Indonesia over illegal drugs.
There is a semi-moratorium on implementation of the death penalty. Maraming friends ng Philippine government.
Mayan Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Senator Rafi Tulfo wants to amend the holiday economics law to strengthen the tourism sector and boost the country's economy. The senator filed Senate Bill 1651 to move weekend holidays to Mondays. The Philippines has 18 holidays each year, 4 of which are special non-working holidays. If his bill is passed, Senator Tulfo says it will strengthen domestic tourism and promote work-life balance among students and workers. Aside from helping the economy, he adds that long weekends can help reduce stress and allow workers to spend more time with their families.
The Department of Agriculture has announced that cheaper onions priced at 150 pesos per kilo can be purchased in Kadiwa stores. Vin Pascua has the details.
The Department of Agriculture expects Filipinos to buy onions at the cheaper price of 150 pesos per kilo in Kadiwa stores. Agriculture Deputy Spokesman Assistant Secretary Rex Estoperez says onions will be rolled out to other places to avoid congestion at the Kadiwa Center main office in Quezon City. Estoperez explains farmers are directly supplying onions to Kadiwa markets. However, he says their agency cannot provide details if they will continue to sell cheaper onions. Estoperez reports that from 21,000 metric tons of onions, only 5,000 metric tons will be imported to the country until January 27. He says this is because only 142 importers were given sanitary and phytosanitary import clearance. He also insists that the government will not import onions during the harvest season in February to protect local farmers. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Health, or DOH, confirms that the 8 Filipinos who tested positive for COVID-19 upon arrival to the Philippines from China have already ended their isolation. DOH officer in charge, Maria Rosario Vergeire, assured that some of them were asymptomatic, while others experienced mild symptoms. A genome sequencing confirmed that 3 out of the 8 tested positive for the BF7 Omicron subvariant. 1 tested positive for the BA5.2 subvariant. The BF7 subvariant is the cause of the resurgence of COVID cases in China.
Pagasa says 2 low-pressure areas have been spotted inside the Philippine area of responsibility. In its 4 p.m. bulletin, the low-pressure area was estimated in the vicinity of Homonhon Island, eastern Samar. The other low-pressure area was estimated at 330 kilometers west of Puerto Princesa City, Palawan. Pagasa forecasts both weather disturbances are unlikely to escalate into a tropical depression. Meanwhile, a shear line affects the eastern section of southern Luzon and Visayas. The low-pressure area or shear line will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms in Surigao del Norte, Dinagat Islands, eastern Visayas, Bicol Region, Quezon, and Kalayaan Islands. The northeast monsoon or Amihan will spur cloudy skies with rains in Apayao, Cagayan Valley, and Aurora. Amihan will cast partly cloudy to cloudy skies with light rain or rains over Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon. Coming up, 6 people are dead after gunmen opened fire at a California home. A Democratic official insists the Biden documents may have jeopardized the United States' national security. And the last king of Greece has been laid to rest. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after the short break. Don't go away.
Bagong taon, kita-kits na tayo sa Goodwill, ang bago nating hangout na super chill. Meet your newest opa, David Chua. Mag-click kaya sila ng super kabugerang si Devon Seron? Level up din ang kulitan at tawanan with the Goodwill Barkada. Laugh out loud at chill vibes lang with Smokey Manaloto, Kat Galang, Ryan Brems, James Caraan at Marina Benipayo. At syempre, di pa patalo sa aktingan si Lodi Raymond Bagaching. Sa Goodwill, bawal ang mga hugotero at emotera. Ano pa man ang problema, siguradong Goodwill ang last resort mo. Kaya shout out na sa tropa at buong pamilya. Goodwill. Dito lang sa Net 25. This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Gun violence in the western U.S. state of California leaves 6 people dead after gunmen opened fire on a home early Monday. Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau says the victims include a 17-year-old mother and her 6-month-old child. They were both shot in the head. Boudreau says they are looking for the suspects.
We can tell you that we believe we have at least 2 suspects at this point. We also believe that this is not a random act of violence. We believe that this was a targeted family. We believe that there are gang associations involved in this scene, as well as potential narcotics investigations.
A neighbor called the police. They arrived 7 minutes later to find dead and dying people inside and outside of the said home.
Another storm brought home rain, floods, and snow to California. California Governor Gavin Newsom says the 9th consecutive storm has killed 19 people. He claims the cyclones have claimed more lives than wildfires and laments that the number of storm deaths will likely grow. Local authorities report that nearly 10,000 people have been evacuated from affected areas. The U.S. National Weather Service says more rain and mountain snow are expected in the Los Angeles County area from Sunday evening through Tuesday.
Ukrainian First Lady Olena Zelenska leads a large delegation of ministers and mayors at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Sources say Kyiv will lobby for greater Western aid and weapons deliveries against Russia. Zelenska is expected to speak on Tuesday. Her husband, President Volodymyr Zelensky, is scheduled to speak via video link on Wednesday and Thursday's sidelines. Russian officials and business leaders were not invited to Davos due to travel bans and EU sanctions.
Exiled opposition leader Viktor Medvedchuk asserts President Volodymyr Zelensky is destroying Ukraine. Medvedchuk claims Zelensky's policies are inevitably driving Ukraine into poverty. He says being enemies with Russia is against Ukraine's economic interests since Kyiv benefits from Moscow. He also insists it is no longer Western Europe that teaches Ukraine politics, but Kyiv that teaches Europe how to achieve economic decline and poverty with the help of a policy of hatred and stubbornness. Medvedchuk warns that if Europe continues to support this policy, it will be dragged into a war, possibly a nuclear one. Medvedchuk was forced into exile after being arrested by the Security Service of Ukraine. RT News says Zelensky personally targeted Medvedchuk for trying to reconcile with Russia.
A top official of the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, visits Ukraine for the 6th time. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi announced the agency will have a permanent presence in the country. Grossi says that a group of experts will work at a nuclear power plant located in the Mykolaiv region. They will coordinate hand in hand with their Ukrainian hosts. The chief added that the group's mission is to facilitate technical support and deliver equipment. The experts will ensure that all of the operations will work properly. The nuclear plant is essential for the country amid the ongoing conflict with Russia.
Moscow has produced its first nuclear warheads called the Poseidon super torpedoes. A defense minister says the weapons are practically indestructible. The warheads were developed for deployment on the Belgorod nuclear submarine. The source adds that the Belgorod is set to receive delivery of the newly equipped torpedoes in the near future. In 2018, President Vladimir Putin announced a torpedo plan. He stated it would have unlimited range and operate quicker than any other submarines of torpedoes at extreme depths. Recently, President Putin sent off hypersonic missiles to the Atlantic and appointed a staff general to lead the war. During New Year's Eve, the Russian president delivered a grim message describing the West as Russia's true enemy in the war on Ukraine. Since then, however, Putin has sent several signals that Russia might surrender.
Vietnam President Nguyen Xuan Phuc has resigned after rumors he was about to be sacked. State media VNA says the ruling Communist Party blamed him for violations and wrongdoings by officials under his control. Nguyen was widely credited with accelerating pro-business reforms in the country. Local reports say Vietnam has no paramount ruler. It is officially led by the party secretary, president, prime minister, and speaker of the House, known as the Four Pillars. Sources say it is not yet clear if a replacement for Nguyen has been chosen.
People from all over Peru begin heading to the capital, Lima. This in a bid to force the resignation of President Dina Boluarte. Some are walking. Others are traveling in caravans of trucks and buses. They all defy the government's state of emergency as they voice their discontent. They demand the closure of Congress and fresh elections. The unrest began after the ouster and arrest of former President Pedro Castillo. Castillo is charged with rebellion after trying to dissolve Congress and rule by decree. Countrywide protests erupted that included roadblocks, storming airports, and mass rallies. At least 42 people have died in 5 weeks of clashes between demonstrators and security forces. The government has extended its state of emergency as it braces for more violence.
Representative Adam Schiff believes that classified documents discovered at the properties of President Joe Biden may have compromised the U.S. national security. Schiff is one of Biden's key allies in Congress. He insists the House Intelligence Committee should receive briefings from U.S. intelligence agencies. They should investigate the Biden documents and the classified papers recovered at former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. He wants to know whether the documents pose any risk of exposure and what harm they can cause. At issue are classified documents, some marked top secret from Biden's 2 terms as vice president from 2009 to 2018.
U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, filed a motion to block his 4-year-old daughter, Navy Joan Roberts, from taking the Biden name. Hunter's motion asked Arkansas Circuit Court to deny the request of the girl's mother, London Roberts, for the surname change. Hunter wants the girl to be able to decide for herself. Reports say Hunter denied he was the father of the child until a paternity test conducted in 2019 proved otherwise. Meanwhile, Biden's lawyer argues that the request to change the surname will rob the girl of a peaceful existence. Hunter also called the name change move a political warfare. He claims his former partner, London, had sought to have their daughter's name redacted from court records related to the DNA test.
For the first time in more than 60 years, China's population shrinks. Official data shows the world's most populous nation faces a demographic crisis. Figures released today show China's population stood at 1.4 billion people at the end of 2022. This is a drop of 850,000. The number of births was 9.56 million, but that was exceeded by the number of deaths, which topped 10.4 million. Analysts warn if the trend continues, it could slow economic growth. This would put pressure on government revenues. China ended its strict one-child policy imposed in the 1980s in 2016. Couples are now allowed to have 3 children, but that has failed to reverse the demographic decline. Many people resist having more children because of the high cost of living. More women are also in the workforce and seeking higher education. Some local authorities are now offering cash incentives to encourage couples to have children.
Greeks say goodbye to the country's last king, who died last week at the age of 82. Constantine II was laid to rest in the royal cemetery near Athens. The interment followed a private funeral service. Dozens of European royals and a crowd of several hundred attended the funeral. The government drew criticism after deciding not to grant him a state funeral. Constantine was a divisive figure in the country's history. He had reigned for just over 3 years when an army dictatorship seized control of Greece in 1967. About 8 months later, he organized a military counter-coup that failed. Constantine fled to Rome with the rest of the royal family and later moved to London. The junta abolished the monarchy in 1973. Greeks voted not to reinstate it after the restoration of democracy in 1974. Up next, Italian police arrest a top mob boss who inspired the Godfather movies. The UK denounces Iran's execution of a British-Iranian national. And teachers and doctors protest in Venezuela demanding more money. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news. Please stay tuned.
Na pagtaas ng presyo ng sibuyas. Ano nga ba ang dahilan?
Ito ang aking analysis kung paano dumating dito sa presyo na 700 per kilo itong sibuyas.
Abangan sa Miyerkules sa Counterpoint. Tatalakayin ni Attorney Panelo at former DA Secretary William Dar ang issue ng sibuyas. Dito sa Net 25.
Kung kayo ay nakaupo o nakabalik, sana mangyari. Ano sa tingin niyo ang unang gagawin niyo upang magkaroon ng katugunan yung pangkasalukuyang sulit?
Good food, good times, good news. Balik kusina na naman ang inyong paboritong cooking show.
Katakam-takam na recipes, masarap na kwentuhan, at walang sawang tawanan. Kasama ng ating espesyal na celebrity guests, natyak na magdadala ng kasiyahan kasama ang aking pinsan na si Sandy Daza.
Kain na! Dito lamang sa Lutong Daza sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
25 Zimbabwean opposition activists appear in court after police raided the home of an opposition member of parliament. This because of an alleged unlawful gathering. Police stormed Sunday the home of Costa Machingauta. Machingauta is a member of the Opposition Citizens Coalition for Change. He is accused of holding a public meeting which requires police clearance in Zimbabwe. The coalition says it was a private meeting. At the legal proceedings, tensions outside the court were high. Police were armed with assault rifles, batons, and tear gas, shoving journalists away. Critics complain of a tightening crackdown on the media and dissent ahead of general elections later this year.
Security is being upgraded at government buildings in Brazil. They were ransacked by rioters earlier this month. Authorities say they will more than double the security deployment at the Esplanade of Ministries and 3 Power Square in the capital of Brasilia. Meanwhile, authorities arrested Brazil's former Minister of Justice and Public Security. Anderson Torres was in charge of security in Brasilia when the invasion of government buildings occurred on January 8th. Torres returned to Brazil over the weekend with criminal charges awaiting him. Before his return, he spent time in the U.S. state of Florida, where ex-President Jair Bolsonaro remains. More than 1,100 people involved in the riot remain in custody. The rioters are supporters of Bolsonaro and claim his election loss was the result of fraud.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni personally congratulates police chiefs after they caught a mafia top boss. Meloni says they have not yet defeated the mafia, but Matteo Messina Denaro's arrest was a key battle to win. She says putting Denaro behind bars is a heavy blow to organized crime. Denaro once boasted he could fill a cemetery with his victims. He was one of the mob's most brutal bosses. His convictions include a life sentence given in absentia in 1992 for the murder of a judge. He was also convicted of the murder of a teenager who was strangled and dissolved in acid after his father turned state witness. Experts describe Denaro as the last godfather who represented all the secrets of Cosa Nostra, which fame is amplified the Godfather movies.
A trial begins for 5 Indonesian men charged with negligence, leading to one of the worst stadium disasters in football history. The accused appeared in court via video link. The stampede in October in the East Java city of Malang left 135 people dead, including more than 40 children. It started after police fired tear gas into the stands when fans ran onto the field at the end of a game. Hundreds of people fled for narrow exits, resulting in people being trampled or suffocated to death. The accused include 3 police officers, a match organizer, and a security official. If convicted, they face up to 5 years in prison. Security was tight at the court. The trial was held virtually for safety reasons.
Britain vows more reprisals against Iran after the Middle Eastern country executed a British-Iranian national accused of spying for the UK. Following the death of Ali Zera al-Bari on the weekend, Britain recalled its ambassador to Iran and summoned the most senior Iranian diplomat in the UK. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has denounced the execution.
Before his death, Mr. Akbari described what was done to him and how torture had been used. Let there be no doubt, he fell victim to the political vendettas of a vicious regime. His execution was the cowardly and shameful act of a leadership which thinks nothing of using the death penalty as a political tool to silence dissent and settle internal scores.
Cleverly says Iran will be held accountable.
Teachers and doctors protest in Caracas, Venezuela. They say their salaries are not keeping up with the cost of living. They join a growing number of public sector workers who demand higher wages. Many say they need additional jobs to have enough money to keep a roof over their heads and put food on the table. Others say they cannot afford medicine or health care. Private estimates say inflation has topped 300% in 2022. The money people make is not worth as much because Venezuela's currency devalued. The government has not adjusted public sector salaries since March of last year.
Denmark experienced a historical first in 2022 as the country had no bank robberies for the year. The number of bank robberies has been decreasing over the past 2 decades. The Nordic nation only had 1 bank holdup reported in 2021 compared to 1,724 in the U.S. This is not solely due to the nature of the Danish people. Rather, there has been an increase in the country's video surveillance and a shift towards a cashless society. This has resulted in fewer cash holdings in bank branches for robbers to steal. The Central Bank of Denmark reported that cash use was cut in half from 2017 to 2021, a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic that propelled cashless operations.
Japan is paying families to move to the countryside. Multiple media outlets report that the government is offering up to 1 million yen per child for families who move out of Tokyo. The financial incentive is an effort to decrease population density in urban areas. Megacity Tokyo has a population nearing 14 million people. The government also hopes the move to the countryside will boost birth rates, which has been plummeting in recent years. The country's latest fertility rate reports 1.34 births per woman. Japan also wants to diversify its aging rural populations and boost tourism. The offer of 1 million yen is equivalent to $7,670. It is an increase from the previous offer of 300,000 yen per child for families moving to other parts of the country. Coming right up, Saudi Arabia's longest river valleys overflow after heavy rains. A study finds social media use is linked to brain changes in teenagers. And Twitter offices closing for not paying rent. Catch these stories and more when Agila International returns.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Judith, mamaya na lang ah. Ano yung meron kayong mamaya see you? Ano yun?
Wala yun, Tito Toto. Ikaw napaka-usisero mo.
So parang date niyo po. Natatandaan mo ba yung bilihan ng damit doon sa malapit sa kaibigan natin? Pupunta kasi ako ngayon doon, mamimili ko ng isang katutak na damit.
Ang saya!
Gusto mo sumama? Style! Style! Ha?
We welcome you back with more global stories here on Agila International. After being dried up for years, Wadi Al Ruma, one of the longest river valleys in Saudi Arabia, is now overflowing with water. The 600-kilometer river valley of Saudi Arabia has soaked sand dunes. This is due to a 2-week heavy rainfall in the eastern part of the Qasim region. The area remains a watery place that challenges drivers to pass through.
Elon Musk's SpaceX launched a triple-core Falcon Heavy rocket from the Kennedy Space Center to launch 2 classified satellites for the U.S. Space Force. Reports suggest that the satellites in question will boost a military communication satellite in space. SpaceX launched 2 satellites for the U.S. Space Force on their Falcon Heavy rocket. The Falcon Heavy consists of 3 modified SpaceX Falcon 9 first stages, which are strapped together. The central booster is topped with a payload-carrying upper stage. As with Falcon 9, the first stages of Falcon Heavy are reusable. According to Space Force authorities, the two-side boosters for USS F-67 will launch for the second flight. On January 19, the business also intends to use a Falcon 9 to launch 51 of its Starlink broadband satellites into low Earth orbit. Research suggests that excessive social media use by teenagers may be linked to changes in the brain. A study at the University of North Carolina conducted brain scans of teens between the ages of 12 and 15. The neuroscientists found that teens who frequently check their social media feeds were sensitive to social rewards from their peers. One of the researchers, Dr. Eva Telzer, says that frequent social media use could potentially have long-term consequences well into adulthood. She adds that it could set the stage for brain development over time. She refuses, however, to make sweeping claims that social media is the sole cause of brain changes. Dr. Telzer does admit that teens who grow up checking social media more often are becoming hypersensitive to feedback from their peers. The study was published by JAMA Pediatrics. Its research on brain development from social media use will continue over the next several years. Twitter and its CEO Elon Musk face a big problem. Several of their global offices are reportedly shutting down, partly due to the company's failure to pay rent. Sources say shutdowns are expected in the next few weeks, including offices in Australia, Hong Kong, Mexico, the Philippines, and South Korea. At its Singapore office, Twitter's Asia-Pacific headquarters, employees were recently escorted out of the building by the landlord for non-payment of rent. The company reportedly paid later that evening, and employees were allowed back in the office. In California, Twitter is being sued for failure to pay rent on its San Francisco office. Court papers state the company owes almost $140,000 in back rent. Since acquiring Twitter, CEO Elon Musk has struggled to manage the company, enforcing massive layoffs and cutting employee benefits. The shutting of offices and non-payment of rent are the latest issue for the Bluebird company. The Bank of Russia says Moscow continues to grow its foreign currency reserves. Russia's regulator announces their reserves surpassed $580 billion in December.
Due to a positive revaluation of their currencies, their holdings are up by 2.6% or $14.7 billion. However, the figure is lower than a year ago. The country's international reserves stood at $631 billion on January 1st, 2022, but later reached a historical maximum of $643 billion on February 18 of the same year.
Intense heat and torrential rain caused havoc Tuesday at the Australian Open. There were hours of delays and a slew of matches called off. The temperature reached 36 degrees. The tournament's 5-part heat stress scale hit 5. The scale measures 4 climate factors: radiant heat, air temperature in the shade, relative humidity, and wind speed. The lowest level reading is 1 and the highest is 5, where play is suspended and the roofs are closed on the 3 main stadiums. The heat led to a 3-hour interruption in the afternoon of round 1 matches on outside courts. Conditions improved and play was able to resume. But then a storm hit, dumping torrential rain that forced players back into the locker room. About 90 more minutes were lost while some matches resumed. At least 8 games that were yet to start were canceled, and organizers say they will be played on Wednesday.
Back in 2022, the Philippine fencing team spent nearly half of the year training inside a bubble in Ormoc City. The strategy is bearing fruit as the national fencers bagged a sack of medals, including 7 golds in the 2023 Southeast Asian Games Fencing Federation Championships in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Aside from winning, the country also got a glimpse of potential competitors in the 32nd SEA Games in Cambodia that will be held in May. Noelito Jose ruled the men's individual AP and Wilhelmina Lozada topped the women's individual foil. Junior fencers collected 5 gold medals, with Andre Agatep winning the men's junior individual saber, apart from victories in the juniors team saber. Enrico Suplico, Ram Jimenez, Tomas Robert Cabrera, while in the juniors team AP, Alexa Larazabal, Ashley Harrison, Ivana Salvador, Martina Bakay, women's junior team foil with Jana Katantan, Bakay, Hannah Bellarmino, Miyake Capina, and the women's junior team saber, Ariana Tiu, Kaikaku de la Serna, Megan Ko Sai, and Mayev Tyra Deboy. Aside from gold medals, Team Philippines also secured 4 silvers and 10 bronzes from the tournament.
A former butler for Princess Diana claims the ongoing tension between Prince Harry and the entire Windsor family may have originated with sausages. In an interview, Paul Burrell says Prince Harry would ask why William gets 3 sausages, but the prince's nanny allegedly replied that Prince William needed more filling up than Harry. Burrell claims the nanny would tell Harry that William is going to be king one day. He says after these sausage arguments, Harry would apparently become quite sad.
Italian actor Gina Lollo Brigida, one of the last icons of the global age of Hollywood, has died at age 95. Culture Minister Gennaro Sanguiliano said on Twitter Monday. Gina Lollo Brigida was born on July 4, 1927 in Subiaco, a mountain village 50 kilometers east of Rome. She was best known for Luigi Comencini's 1953 classic Bread, Love and Dreams and Jean Delanoy's 1956 The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Lollo Brigida starred with many of the leading men of the time, including Errol Flynn, Burt Lancaster, and Humphrey Bogart. According to her agency, Lollo Brigida underwent an operation in Rome clinic in September after breaking her femur.
Disney has dropped the new trailer for Star Wars: The Mandalorian Season 3. The new trailer teases the return of Pedro Pascal's Din Djarin and the Force-sensitive baby Grogu. The unusual pair is ready to explore the Star Wars galaxy in Mando's new ship. Official plot says Season 3 will follow Din Djarin in his home planet of Mandalore as he seeks redemption for past transgressions. The Mandalorian Season 3 will premiere on March 1st on Disney+.
That way, you'll never be lost.
The Asian American Expo offers visitors the opportunity to experience food, entertainment, and shopping from a variety of Asian and Asian American groups. In Pomona, California, Eva and Alan Basayahe tour this popular event held every year. Take a look.
Welcome, Net 25!
In its 41st year, the Asian American Expo continues to bring together the richness of Asian cultures.
From performances, anime, and sneakers, this expo stretches out over 7 exposition halls and outdoor pavilions.
A lot of hours, a lot of time we contribute in the practice. So for this dancing, actually, we are practicing every week and every day for more than 1 hour. Recently 2 months to practice those programs.
Also for this dress, so we do the happy and the celebration, and the other one we did this one because California is need raining, so we use the umbrella. We did the umbrella this dancing.
Taiko is a Japanese word. It's 2 combinations of kanji characters or Chinese characters. And so there's the word tai, which means big, and then ko, which is like a sound or a drum. So taiko literally means drum, like big drum. Taiko is a very fun musical activity. It's also an athletic activity. So as you notice, we're in a stance, like we're kind of grounding ourselves so that we can be ready to hit the drum. Because when you hit the drum, it hits back, and if you're not in a good stance, like you're gonna fall. So if you like to be athletic, if you're musical, or if you want to try music, I would say that drumming is a very good opportunity to get started.
We want to showcase the beauty and culture of Chinese culture, and we want to demonstrate the diversity of American. As Asian American, we are proud of our heritage.
We can see a lot of performing and different kinds of performing. Americans, so we need, everybody happy to live here. So we need to let other people know our culture. So it's just like other nationally have their own culture. We need to let them know our culture.
Checking out every attraction and vendor in just one day is a pretty tall order. There's just too many of them.
Fortunately, the Asian American Expo is set to return in 2024. And for those of you keeping count, that'll be year 42 for this event.
Eva and Allen, Pomona, California, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
On a farm close to Hanoi, Levan Hin picks out his best bird among 2,000 dragon chickens. This chicken breed has legs as thick as bricks, and it can fetch up to $2,000 a head. Take a look. The lumpy legs of the Dong Tao chicken, named after the commune where they are bred in northern Vietnam, are considered a delicacy. It is a popular dish among the wealthy during Vietnamese New Year, known as Tet. The big-legged chicken is commonly sold for about $150. The value can increase by more than 10 times, depending on its weight and chewy texture. According to Hien, the key to the bird's taste is its diet of corn and rice and the freedom to roam. Although the laying hens are kept in battery cages, the chickens bred for meat are let loose in a small garden. The meat of the Dong Tao chicken is low in fat. It is sometimes served boiled, fried, stewed, or served with lemongrass. The tender and delicious chicken meat is usually given as a year-end gift for business partners and elderly relatives. And here we call that Adidas.
Yum, yum, nevertheless. And to help you go through this week, here's a quote from Simone Biles, an American artistic gymnast. I'd rather regret the risks that didn't work out than the chances I didn't take at all.
And that's because you lose the chances if you don't take, you lose if you don't take chances.
And if in case you fail, let that serve as a lesson for you to do better next time. And keep doing better, as we always say.
What's that? Lose all the chances you don't take. There you go. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.